Here is the fully paraphrased and translated version, carefully preserving the original structure, pacing, philosophical essence, and video-ready flow. Negative thoughts never arrive out of nowhere. They don't drop from the sky or spring from emptiness. They gather gradually, almost imperceptibly, like morning mist settling over still water. It begins as a faint unease, a subtle tightness in the chest, then a looping image, a word, a memory. Soon, the mind circles back to the same point, trapped in a narrow corridor without windows. Buddhist teachings remind us that the mind's natural state is clarity and purity. Yet, like mountain spring water, it can be stirred by wind. The wind of thought isn't an adversary. It simply signals a lack of stillness. The mistake begins when we fight it, waving our arms, quickening our breath, amplifying the inner noise. The more we resist, the higher the waves. Before releasing negative thoughts, we must first see them as they truly are, not as enemies or threats, but as mere movement. Thoughts arise and pass. Suffering doesn't come from the thoughts themselves, but from mistaking them for reality. We trust every inner voice as if it were a sage, when it's often just an echo of old fears. The Buddha taught that suffering stems from ignorance. We don't recognize the true nature of the mind, so we cling to whatever appears within it. A negative thought feels solid, heavy, dangerous. It speaks of an unchangeable past or an uncertain future, and quietly, we slip out of the present, losing our footing. The first simple practice doesn't begin with action, but with pause. Not an outward halt, but an inward one. When a thought arises, there's no need to push it away, dissect it, justify it, or argue with it. Just gently acknowledge it. In Buddhist tradition, this is called clear seeing. You don't step into the thought or feed it. You simply witness its presence. Here, the breath becomes essential, not forced, not deepened, not manipulated, just the breath that's already happening. You let it be. You feel the air moving in and out. The thought may still hum in the background, but it's no longer the center. The center becomes the living sensation of this exact moment. Many assume a technique must be complex, secret, or extraordinary, but truth is often disarmingly simple. Simplicity unsettles the mind, which craves effort and struggle. Yet peace is reached through gentleness. When you stop fighting a thought, it loses its grip. It becomes like a cloud drifting across the sky, leaving no trace. Understand that you don't need to clear every negative thought at once. That's neither the goal nor the task. The only aim is to stop being their captive. When you stop identifying with a thought, it no longer dictates your state. You can hear it without following it. Buddhist wisdom compares the mind to a mirror. It reflects everything that passes, yet remains inherently clean. Negative thoughts don't tarnish your essence. They're temporary reflections. The calmer your gaze, the quicker they fade. This practice requires no secluded room, special timing, or ritual. It's available anywhere, in line, during a commute, before sleep. Each time you notice a thought and gently return to the breath, you take a step toward freedom. Not a loud or sudden leap, but a quiet, profound one. Peace isn't a reward you earn. It unfolds when you stop chasing it. And that's where the journey of releasing negative thoughts truly begins. Not through control, but through mindful presence. Not through suppression, but through understanding. Here, stillness begins, Once stillness has even slightly touched your inner space, the next vital step arrives. It's even simpler than it sounds, which is why it's often overlooked. Buddhist teaching says the deepest truths hide in plain sight, and the most valuable things demand no force. A negative thought appears like a visitor. Usually we either slam the door or invite it in for a long, exhausting conversation. Both drain us. The simple technique is to do neither. You let the thought enter and leave without involvement. It's like watching someone walk past your window. You see them, but you don't get up or follow. In Buddhist practice, this is called the observer's stance. Not cold or detached, but warm and present. You don't label the thought good or bad. You don't ask why it came. You simply notice its shape. It might be a word, an image, a bodily sensation. You allow yourself to see it fully. Crucially, don't rush. The mind is trained for speed. It wants instant relief, quick fixes. But negativity feeds on hurry. When you slow down, it loses its footing. Slowness creates space, and in that space, a thought cannot linger long. A key part of this practice is softly anchoring attention in the body. Thoughts dwell in the head, but peace lives in sensation. Feel the ground beneath your feet, the warmth in your palms, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. No rigid focus needed. Just light awareness, like listening to a distant sound. If the negative thought returns, it's not a failure. It's natural. The mind is operated on autopilot for years and needs time to learn a new way. Each time you notice it and return to sensation, you strengthen a new pathway. Not through force, but through repetition. The Buddha said, "All that arises must pass." Thoughts are no exception. They aren't permanent. They survive only on attention. When you stop feeding them, they dissolve on their own. Not dramatically, but quietly, like a fading note. Sometimes a thought feels particularly heavy, tied to grief, fear, or old wounds. In those moments, pair observation with compassion, not toward the thought, but toward yourself. You might quietly acknowledge, "This is hard right now." That's not weakness, it's honesty. Compassion loosens inner tension and allows energy to flow freely. This simple practice doesn't reshape the world around you. It transforms your relationship to it, and that's its power. When your relationship shifts, the world gradually follows. Negative thoughts cease to be life's center. They become background noise that no longer steers your path. Over time, you'll notice gaps between thoughts. At first, they're brief, almost invisible, but peace lives precisely there. Not as a void, but as a sense of wholeness. You still think, you still live, but an inner space opens where breathing feels effortless. Buddhist wisdom teaches that freedom doesn't begin when thoughts vanish, but when you stop being them. This observing practice becomes the bridge from habitual tension to quiet clarity. You discard nothing. You simply stop holding on. Gradually, a subtle but vital shift occurs. You realize negative thoughts no longer consume your entire awareness. They still arise, but a space opens between you and them. This space isn't cold or empty. It's filled with presence. Here, the genuine freedom described by Buddhist masters is born. Before, a thought would arrive and instantly become your reality, coloring your mood, body, and breath. Now, it arises like a distant sound. You hear it, but it doesn't penetrate you. This isn't the result of struggle. It's the natural outcome of mindful observation. When identification drops, the mind's grip weakens on its own. Buddhist wisdom says suffering's root isn't in thoughts, but in clinging. We hold on to thoughts because we mistake them for self. But look closely, and you'll see thoughts arise and pass on their own. You didn't summon them, nor can you banish them. This realization shatters the illusion of control, and in doing so, sets you free. At this stage, notice another detail. Negative thoughts often mirror bodily tension. Tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, heavy shoulders. Before, these sensations amplified with the thoughts. Now, you can let them be without resistance. You don't flee or fix. You make room. When sensation has space, it begins to shift. Sometimes it softens, sometimes it moves, sometimes it fades. This isn't magic. It's nature. Body and mind naturally seek balance when unobstructed. A negative thought loses its fuel when the body stops bracing. Crucially, don't turn this into a chore. The moment rigid expectations arise, tension returns. The Buddhist path always points to the middle way, neither straining nor slacking. You simply return to observation again and again, without judgment or rush. Gradually, the gaps between thoughts lengthen. These pauses aren't empty. They hold clarity, calm, a quiet joy. This state doesn't depend on external conditions. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It simply is, like deep water beneath surface ripples. Fear may occasionally surface. As the mind quietens, old habits lose their ground, and the unfamiliar appears. Don't fear it. Buddhist teaching says the unknown is a doorway, not a danger. Beyond it lies a live presence, free from endless inner chatter. You might notice your reactions softening. What once sparked mental storms now passes gently. You still feel, but you don't drown. This isn't indifference, it's resilience. Compassion for yourself and others deepens, no longer distorted by fear. At this point, the simple practice of observation becomes your natural state. You no longer do it separately. It weaves into daily life. You walk, speak, work, and remain present. Thoughts come and go, but you stay centered, quiet, and steady. The Buddha compared the mind to a lake. When the water is still, it reflects everything clearly. Negative thoughts are just surface ripples. They cannot alter the depths. The more often you return to that depth, the less power the surface waves hold over your life. Thus, understanding slowly dawns. You don't eliminate thoughts. You free yourself from their control. And in that freedom, a lightness emerges that effort could never achieve. It reveals itself naturally when you simply allow things to be. Eventually, you clearly sense that peace isn't something external. It doesn't arrive from outside or hinge on circumstances. It was always nearby, merely obscured by the mind's constant need to control, explain, and hold on. When that habit softens, peace returns like an old friend you simply stopped noticing. Buddhist wisdom clarifies that freeing yourself from negative thoughts doesn't mean they vanish forever. It means ending the inner war. Thoughts may still visit, but they no longer dictate your worth, your direction, or your state. You learn to live not inside your thoughts, but alongside them, remaining anchored in the living present. Over time, this simple observing practice becomes second nature. You stop calling it practice. It's just how you exist. You notice the mind naturally slowing, and in the pauses between thoughts, a gentle clarity arises. This isn't euphoria or a special trance. It's warm, steady presence. Remember, the path isn't perfectly smooth. Some days, negative thoughts return with greater force. In those moments, don't lose heart. The Buddhist path isn't measured by calm days, but by the depth of acceptance. Even when the mind grows restless again, you already know it's temporary. That knowing brings steadiness. Over time, trust in life deepens, not because everything becomes perfect, but because an inner anchor forms. You know you can always return to the breath, to the body, to quiet observation. This return requires no effort. It happens naturally when you stop hurrying. Negative thoughts often stem from a desire to protect. The mind tries to shield you from pain, predict danger, maintain control. When you view this with understanding, gratitude arises. Even the heaviest thoughts are revealed as misguided attempts at care. This realization softens the inner dialogue. Buddhist wisdom teaches that true freedom isn't about reshaping the world to fit you, but about ceasing to fight what already is. When you stop resisting your thoughts, they lose their need to be loud. Stillness arrives not because you summoned it, but because you stopped interfering. Gradually, life begins to feel different. Moments grow richer, simple things more vivid. You hear the silence between sounds, feel the pauses between actions. In those pauses, a depth unfolds that words cannot capture, but can only be lived. If this path resonates with you, if you've felt even a whisper of stillness, stay close. Subscribe to continue this quiet conversation. Like this video, if these words touched your heart, leave a comment and share what you experienced. For those who wish to support the channel with a donation, links are in the description and pinned comment. Thank you for watching and for the attention you've given this moment of stillness.